well as those weather conditions into this weekend. Overall, for most of the region today, it's going to be a beautiful day. So we'll get started with this here in about a minute or so. I'm going to flip it around, show you the current conditions out there, which are very quiet and quite pleasant if I'm being 100% correct. This will give me a chance to get a couple things worked out back here behind the scenes. And like I said, here in about 30 seconds to a minute, we'll get fully started in this live update for today. That's working there. Okay. One thing done. Now going on to the second. And we look to be in good shape there. So I know few people will be working their way in to this update as we go throughout it. But I'd say let's get started with it now, and we'll get started. But if you have any questions or comments as we go throughout this update, certainly feel free to let me know, and I'll keep an eye on the chat section in the other screen to my side, and we'll answer those as we go. Really, the main takeaway for this morning: it is beautiful out there. We're looking at ample sunshine, temperatures generally in the 40s and 50s. We've seen those start to warm back up. We're back into the 60s now for both Kalispell and Missoula. They're at 62 and 65, 59 in Butte and Dillon. The one note on the Dillon camera, that does look like there's a bit of haze out there. We will continue to see that over the next little bit. We've got wildfire smoke coming in from Washington, Oregon, as well as Idaho, and that's going to help to keep maybe the air quality just a little bit reduced, but keep that haze in the air like we're seeing from our Dillon camera. I know we were able to see it earlier on TV Mountain looking north, as well as a little bit from the Butte camera looking off to the west. You can kind of see that haze still there, but not as I'll say noticeable as compared to what we're seeing on the Dillon camera, where we aren't able to see quite as far as we normally would be able to out in that area. Now, as for today, most of the region, we're talking about mostly clear conditions, hot conditions at that. Temperatures into the 80s and 90s for this afternoon. So Kalispell, that's pretty close to average for this time of year, maybe a few degrees cooler than average. Butte, Bozeman, 86 and 88, that's right close to average. Missoula, we're a few degrees above average for this time of the year. Right now, it does look like outside of Bozeman and maybe West Yellowstone, today is going to be the hottest day of at least the next 5 to 6 days. But with all of these icons of sunshine, we aren't completely out of the woods. We do have that potential for some thunderstorms down in southwest Montana, and we'll see that as we go through Future Tracker. It stays pretty quiet until we get to, say, 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. This is going to be the newest model run, so this is the first time I am seeing this one as well. Earlier, I'll say earlier as in yesterday, it was sparking off a few thunderstorms more in this zone. So from the Wisdom area, back over here from Wisdom across toward near Butte and then over to Townsend, well, trends have been further and further and further south as we've gone throughout the last 24 hours. So potentially seeing some of those thunderstorms right along the state line, Lima, Red Rock Lakes National Wildlife Refuge, back over to West Yellowstone, maybe even up to Big Sky. They're going to be right on the edge, at least from the initial development of these storms. This is going to be looking around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Earlier, even this morning, we had some of those thunderstorms working their way into Dillon and Bozeman, but again, the track is a little further south. I will say this, I can't rule out places like Dillon up to Ennis, Virginia City, Bozeman, getting a shower, a quick rumble of thunder from one of these storms. It's really just going to come down to where these develop and how far north those develop, and then they'll all be tracking off to the north and east. But the main takeaway with these, any of the storms that do develop, we could be talking gusty winds of 40 to nearly 60 miles per hour. The surface is very dry, so that it allows for those gusty winds to accelerate as they're moving down due to evaporative cooling. Additionally, some of the stronger storms could actually produce some small hail, some brief heavy rainfall, and lightning. As always with these thunderstorms is going to be a concern, and that is going to assist in our slightly elevated fire weather concerns for today, but then we get into tomorrow, and that's going to be even higher. So That's one thing we'll touch on here in just a moment. Now, as we go through, see there is that one thunderstorm that develops. This is looking right around 7 o'clock. So if you are going to the Big Sky Country State Fair at the Gallatin County Fairgrounds, just keep a close eye on the weather. I think for the most part we should stay dry, but I can't rule out an isolated shower or storm rolling through there this evening. Really, it's only going to be around a 10 to maybe 20% chance of that. Elsewhere, we're going to be looking at pretty dry conditions. So again, I'd say that line from Bozeman back down to Dillon, areas south of that is where we'll have to keep that at least closest attention to the weather today. But even as far north as that Butte to Wisdom line, up in the direction of Helen, I can't rule it out, but it's looking less and less likely as we've gone throughout the morning. Those showers overall dissipate pretty quickly after sunset. We're looking quiet overnight, except for, you can see these little blips on Future Tracker into northwest Montana. Some light showers, maybe a weak thunderstorm is going to be possible overnight tonight as these clouds start to roll in. I think the best chance for some very light rainfall will be in our higher elevations from this next disturbance. But I will say this model run is a little bit more aggressive with the amount of shower activity up here into parts of Lincoln and Flathead counties. Earlier in the day, we weren't seeing hardly any from the prior model run. So, again, another one of those things we'll have to just keep a close eye on. I can't rule out some isolated showers up into Glacier National Park into tomorrow morning, maybe the midday period. But then we'll get into the afternoon, and here comes at least the next potential for some thunderstorms. Butte, Bozeman, Dillon, here we go again. Not overly aggressive on this particular model as well. You see just a few little showers popping up. I think we're going to be in that probably 20 to 30% chance of some showers and thunderstorms for tomorrow, as well as right along the Montana-Canada border. We're still in that northwesterly flow, so we keep getting these little disturbances that want to sweep through the area, so they're just kind of widely spaced, and that's why there isn't like a consistent area of shower and thunderstorm activity. So not everybody is going to see precipitation. I think most everybody won't over the next 2 days. But if you happen to get underneath one of those, just be prepared for some gusty winds, as well as that potential for at least a couple of lightning strikes and heavy rainfall for a short period of time. We'll have more, or at least better, rain chances as we get later on into the forecast. Now, looking at that weekend forecast, we're looking at 70s and 80s for most areas as we get into Saturday and Sunday. We do have a weak cold front that's going to be sliding through with this next storm system overnight, and that's what's going to help to bring that extra bit of cloud cover to the region. So temperatures are a little bit cooler tomorrow as compared to today for Missoula, Kalispell, as well as in Butte, though Bozeman, you're going to be out ahead of that front. So we're still likely going to at least get into the upper 80s, if not the low 90s for Saturday. Temperatures will take a little dip into Sunday down into the Bozeman area as well as in Butte, though will stay pretty consistent for both Missoula and Kalispell. Overnight lows into Sunday morning in the upper 40s and lower 50s area-wide. One note in this, though, again, we talked about that chance for a few thunderstorms in southwest Montana, both for today and tomorrow. Wind is also going to be a story. It won't be particularly strong today. Could see a few gusts in that 15 to 20 mile per hour range. But then we get into Saturday and watch how the colors really light up on the map. We're talking 20 to 30 mile per hour gusts, potentially even a few closer to that 30 to 40 mile per hour range like we're seeing here indicated by this particular forecast model for Salmon, Idaho, and Dillon. And with these winds, let me get this back on track. With those winds, the relatively warm temperatures, even those in the 70s and 80s, the potential for a few thunderstorms that could help, unfortunately, spark a few lightning-driven fires, but also dry conditions at the surface. Even though we may be dealing with rain, those humidity values are less than 20% for the afternoon hours, both for today and tomorrow in many locations. So when I flip this back around and we're looking at the fire weather map, or at least the potential of that, looking into Saturday, I think especially into southwest Montana, Bozeman, the Interstate 90 corridor over to Butte and then down into Dillon, we could be talking about moderate to moderately high fire weather concerns for tomorrow. We're not into red flag warning territory or even a fire weather watch, but we're going to still see that at least a little more elevated into Saturday afternoon as compared to what we've even seen the last few days. So I think fire weather wise, today is a day to watch out for, but then also again into Saturday. So again, not really anything that's majorly pressing right now, but it is something we will be keeping a very close eye on. And I guess this is just a good reminder, if you have a trailer that you've got connected to your vehicle, make sure that the chains are up off of the road. Those chains have a bad tendency to spark if they hit the road, and that can start a new wildfire just right off the side of the highway or the interstate. Another one, for folks that are maybe going out camping, if you are camping, make sure to have those fires completely doused, completely out before you leave them, because those unattended campfires, even if there's just a little spark, those can actually become fire starters in their own right. So certainly it's just be cognizant to those concerns with our fire weather risk a little bit more elevated over the next few days. Now, speaking of fires, bit of good news, we haven't really seen too many develop in our region. We still have the Garnet Fire that has actually been reduced in size due to more consistent mapping, or at least a better ability to map this fire. Now looking somewhere around 70 acres, so we've had it as high as about 120 acres. So it does look like it has dropped just due to the better mapping of this fire, but it does look like the containment is up just a little bit into that nearly 30% range. So good news there. Cooler temperatures are helping to get ahead of that fire, but with them warming back up for the next few days, we could see a bit more activity on it. We also have the Bond Lake fire here west of Deer Lodge. This is a very small fire right now up there between Deer Lodge and Phillipsburg, roughly around 2 acres in size. And then we look to I'll say the biggest fires in our area, and it continues to be these two down here. The Big Bear and the Rush Fire have seen quite a bit of activity over the last few days, and we've seen them grow pretty rapidly. The Big Bear Fire now sitting roughly 3,500 acres, and the Rush Fire nearly 1,500 acres. So that, I think, those two fires specifically, I think, are a big reason we were seeing the extra haze and smoke there in Dillon, because that's going to be pushing right in that direction. Same thing down towards Butte and Bozeman. We'll likely see another push of smoke into those areas this afternoon, likely due to the increased activity, the increased winds, and that could be the case again as we head into Saturday, even as that little cold front slides through the area. Additionally, some of the smoke from northwest Montana that we've seen the last few days, we saw it on the TV mountain camera. There's two fires in particular that I think are helping that out. One is this Hope Fire here north of Spokane. It's been burning for a while, but it has been producing a fair amount of smoke at times. And then there's also one back here into north central Oregon. It's called the Cram Fire, and it's a pretty large fire, and that's, I think, because of it's still pretty far, of course, far away, but that smoke's getting into the air and getting into the atmosphere, and with the flow we've seen, that's dragging all of that into our area, so that certainly helped with a bit of the haze as well. And that particular fire, again, north central Oregon, is almost 100,000 acres in size, so it is a massive fire out there. I'm trying to think kind of a rough location of where it is. This is all well to the south and east of Portland, north of Bend. So it's out there and producing a lot of smoke. So again, the haze, I think, the Hope Fire, Big Bear and Rush fires, and then also the Cram Fire are big producers, or at least of the haze that we're seeing. So continuing on, we're going to see this little bit of northwesterly flow. Here's the storm system that's going to be moving in for today, that little dip in the jet stream. We'll see a couple more disturbances move through, one for Saturday, and then we get into Sunday and Monday, and notice how this starts to cut off. We're going to see the trough deepen, and maybe even a little low pressure system develop into Monday and Tuesday, and that's going to slide across the area. And as it does so, we're going to see our precipitation chances on the increase as well. We're going to see those upwards to about, I don't want that to go quite that fast, 20 to 30, maybe 10 to 20% as we head into late Sunday, but more likely into Monday. You notice how maybe a few showers up here trying to develop in northwest Montana and southwest Montana as well. We get into Monday, We see a bit of a repeat performance. I think the focus will be again southwest and Montana, but notice how this coverage increases. This is looking Monday afternoon along the divide, as well as back down into Idaho, and a fair bit of moisture up into British Columbia. But as we get into Tuesday, you see more of that starting to show up for northwest, west central Montana. And then Tuesday afternoon, let me get this a little further out. Tuesday afternoon does look like, especially for areas near and north of I-90, we could be talking scattered to potentially widespread showers and thunderstorms. At this time, severe weather doesn't look likely, but it is something we'll have to keep a watch on. It is that time of the year, so with the dry conditions at the surface, a little bit of upper air support from that trough, we could see a couple of stronger thunderstorms into early next week, but that's something we'll keep a very close eye on as we go throughout the weekend and as we get more information and more data to make that forecast. So certainly stay tuned to the forecast through the weekend. Overall, right now, we'll take all the rain we can get. Indications are, at least into northwest Montana, we could see some wetting rains or rains over 1/10 of an inch, which would be great, and we'll take that any way we can. So a couple little notes. This is going to be the last graphic that I have specifically. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask those really quick. This is sort of kind of that last call. But here's what we're tracking. For today, isolated thunderstorms southwest Montana. Elsewhere, we're looking at mostly clear, warm conditions, maybe a little bit breezy. Those winds will pick up into this weekend, especially for Saturday. Warm, primarily dry, though. Again, another round of isolated thunderstorms in southwest Montana can't be ruled out for Saturday afternoon, and maybe even into far northwestern Montana as well. We'll see our fire weather risk increasing into Saturday because of that combination of factors and the potential of a few thunderstorms that could help to spark off. Hopefully they don't, but could spark off a few fires of their own right. And then we get into early next week. We'll see that next weather maker with the higher rain chances moving into the area, and likely that'll be sticking around for about Wednesday morning. Then we'll see that storm system shift off to the east, and it does look like high pressure builds back in for the end of next week and into the weekend, where we could talk about temperatures back into the 80s and 90s. And we still have a week to look at out to that forecast. So we'll get through the fire danger for this week. Again, it's not a red flag warning criteria or anything like that, but it will be a little bit more elevated. And then we'll see the rain into early next week. One other note, again, we've got a lot of great events going on across the region. So we've got the Montana International Choral Festival here in Missoula. I know most of those events are going to be indoors, but if you have any plans outside of that or that kind of are adjacent to attending that, we're going to be looking at pretty nice conditions, a little bit cooler into tomorrow and Sunday, still mid-80s, just a few degrees shy of that average. We also have Under the Big Sky up in Whitefish, the music festival up there. That's going on this weekend. Again, should be pretty good, maybe a little bit breezy into Saturday afternoon. We'll see that chance for some showers, I think, likely holding off until we get to Monday. And then, of course, we have the Big Sky Country State Fair down in Bozeman. Again, there is going to be that chance for some isolated showers and thunderstorms both today and tomorrow. I don't think we're going to see them lasting very long, at least as the indications are right now. They're going to be widely spaced. But if you happen to get underneath one of those, especially if you're at the fair, if you hear thunder roar, go indoors. That's the best advice I can give you. If you can get into a bit more of a sturdy structure or even into a vehicle at that point as those storms approach, that is the best thing to do, because the last thing we want is anybody to get struck by lightning. That is a very big concern for this time of the year with all the outdoor activities that we've got going on, and it's a great weekend to, it's a great time of year to go out and do that. So key takeaways again, fire weather risk is increasing. We will have that chance for a few thunderstorms the next few days, and then that next storm system moves in for early next week. If you have any photos or videos of your adventures this weekend or of the weather that you might see, feel free to share those with us at nbcmontana.com/chime-in. Also, tune into our live broadcasts tonight at 5, 6, and 10 for the latest news and weather updates. And then I think with that, I will wrap it up. Have a great weekend, everyone. Have a safe weekend, and I will see you all early next week, bright and early, NBC Montana Today from 5 to 7 a.m. with Jason Hurst. With NBC Montana, I'm meteorologist Mitchell Coombs.